All right. Well, we always kind of do this the same way. Tell the people who you are and what you've been up to.
So I'm Damaris. I have a last name, but I feel like you can find me by my first name. I have been working on a children's book, and I want to say for about 15 years because I had the idea, and then every couple of years I would try to draw it or ask someone to illustrate it for me. Um, and just never came to fruition until this summer. Finally found an illustrator and just spent a lot of time online learning how to publish and getting quotes on everything, and finally published a children's book. So it's done. It's real. Copyright information sent in to the Library of Congress. Official author over here.
Woo! All right. Well, so this is really exciting to me because to the extent some good print plays a part in this whole story, it was basically kept a surprise from me. I found out you were creating a kid's book by needing to help Pat with a file. It just so happened the file that I was helping him with was your book cover. So that was my first time hearing about your new creative venture. Since then, I've been able to read it myself and even gift it out once, with a few more times still on deck for Christmas. So let's hear it. Tell everybody about Dinosaur Ears.
So I kept it, I really did keep it under wraps because I felt any distraction talking about it, telling people about it, if it wouldn't happen or get finished, I would be really upset. So I just didn't tell anyone, and I had obviously asked Pat at Some Good Print. He's my go-to for any quotes on anything I need for work, any weird ideas I have, any graphic designs, just anything. So I actually have the email. I reached out to Pat in 2017 to ask him to do my illustrations, but obviously he deserves more money than I can pay, and just fitting in other projects, especially like lower revenue projects, wasn't ideal at the time. So anyway, I reached out to him for a quote because I was determined to get this done, and I wanted to see, what I had to expense so I could budget myself. Okay, I'm going to write this book. I'm going to pay someone for photos, and I'm going to print at least one copy. I'm going to print at least maybe 2 copies, one for me and one to sell, because if I sell one copy, it's a success. I sold a book, and just having a physical copy is real. I can copyright it. It makes me an author and all that. So, and I didn't know, who Pat told, who he didn't tell. I didn't swear him to secrecy, I don't think. But yeah, pretty much everyone was surprised. And it was like Halloween, we had all of the books arrive to my house, and I put something on Facebook that, hey, I wrote a book, by the way. And people still don't know. People are still like, wait, what are you talking about? Did you really write a book? And it's a children's book. It's a paperback. It's, short. It's not a lot of words. But everyone has been so excited that they've made me even more excited about something that I almost took on as like a chore to just get this project finished. But essentially the idea I had was from seeing tons of dinosaurs and skeletons and memes, and this whole thing that I like dinosaurs since I was little is accurate, but people take it to a whole nother level with gift giving towards me, and the idea of how much I actually like dinosaurs, but I do like them, and I love going to the museums where I would see, the replicas, recreations from, the fossil remains of dinosaurs, but they never had any ears. Even the horse-like ones, or, just ones that you would think relate to a current animal, like a hippo or things like that, aside from woolly mammoths, which are much more recent than dinosaurs. They just didn't have any ears. So it occurred to me one time, like, what if you put other animal ears on a dinosaur? And it would be kind of funny because they are sort of, lizard-like. But I was like, I can do this as a children's book. Like each page would just be a dinosaur.
Lizard-like. Now we think they're bird-like.
I know. So this was around the time when I had this idea, when everyone was getting more knowledgeable about, they had feathers. They might have had feather-like stalks and things on their body. So everyone was concerned with that. But again, not anything to do with their ears or anything fleshy or anything like that. And I also do not have a great grasp of anatomy or biology of animals. So, I mean, I know you can tell from some internal structures of like fish and things if something had certain types of hearing, but I don't know those things. So I was like, okay, it's simple, just a book. Here's, different pictures of dinosaurs with ears, but I didn't know how to make a book. And the first thing you need is the images. So I couldn't draw them. I cannot draw. I've tried. And like I said, over the years, it wasn't something I ever put money behind. But this year, with COVID-19, we had extra time just on our hands. Everyone wasn't going out. I had the time, and I still had my job. So I was still full time. Luckily, didn't take a huge pay hit or anything like that. And I was like, oh, I could get this done. My company encouraged us to do a personal development initiative over the summer. And I was like, what can I do? Just spent a couple months, like May and June, figuring out what I would do. And then I would do this. And I had an artist just say yes. He had a lot of work canceled with his events in the music industry and his work as an artist doing caricatures. So my friend Ray.
I was just going to say, how did you find your illustrator?
So my friend Ray has done my dog wash events every year where he comes and he does caricatures drawing dogs. So caricatures are somewhat humorous. And so I saw him online draw something more digitally with color versus a black and white caricature. And so I knew he had the capability to do it. And I was hoping he had the time on hand without, all of his band events going on that were canceled that part of this year. So he said yes. So he said, sure, I'll take some money from you and I'll get these done. And he really worked on them all summer. So I've known him, at least 10 years or so. But again, I want to say Pat was my first choice from back in the day. And I made sure he wasn't upset about, me using a different illustrator, but he was fine with it. And that's pretty much how I got the idea, decided to get it done this year, found an illustrator and a printing company, and you guys at Some Good Print, pretty much helped with everything else, to make sure, I had the paper correct and everything I wanted for the book to look the way I wanted it to.
Right on. Did you have any input on the illustration style, or did you just say, Ray, take it and run?
Pretty much hands off, just Ray, do what you want. I realize I'm not paying you what an illustrator would typically make, because once I Googled that, I was pretty happy Ray said that he would do it for me. And kind of, the more you pay an illustrator, the more you can have them do edits and redos and revise things. So I just said, listen, each page needs to have a dinosaur with this color of like this kind of ears. And he took it from there. So the colors were all him. The style is his. Everything.
The choice of dinosaurs?
Yeah, yeah. And I said, they don't need to be anatomically correct. It's fine if they're not, gonna look like a real dinosaur if they actually had bones or something. But, and he just really captured like the colorfulness we were talking about earlier of the, the color, the cover, the pages inside, and just I love the faces of the dinosaurs because he's so used to drawing people's features and emotions and happy emotions like a caricature would. Their faces are the best. Like I didn't want him to make really any changes. The only thing I think we talked about was we wanted the ears to be bigger, to be more exaggerated than like an accurate mouse ear on a dinosaur.
Well, coming from somebody who draws caricatures, it seems like an exaggeration drawing is not something he's unfamiliar with. Is he around our age? Because the vibe that I get from the dinosaurs is actually like very old school Nickelodeon, like Rocko's Modern Life era vibe.
Yeah, I mean he's a little older than me, and like I always give you guys a hard time. I'm a couple years older than most of you,
Oh,
but
for God's sakes.
but around the same. Yeah. So he's from around here. I mean, we pretty much know all the same, you know, cartoons and everything from the 80s. So yeah, definitely. I would have to ask him for sure, but I would say probably influenced him a little bit.
Cool. So you were talking about how you went to the museum and everything growing up, and like were fascinated with the dinosaurs there. So like to the outside world, you are to dinosaurs basically what Star Wars is to me, or like what I am to Star Wars. Like, was the museum experience the first thing that turned you on to loving dinosaurs, or was there other stuff beforehand that kind of got you in that direction, and then the museum just kind of took it and like gave you that extra boost?
I mean, I remember as early as first or second grade, the whole like finding out what dinosaurs are and what paleontology is. And like you could totally grow up and do that. And I think it must have been more from media. I don't remember really reading any dinosaur books or children's books with dinosaurs. The Flintstones obviously would have been like, do you know the dinosaur? But more so, I would say just like media, cartoons, movies. Like Land of the Lost was probably one of my favorites. So it was probably more that, and then, you know, through school going to different, you know, science centers and museums and things like that.
Right on. Do you remember, like, this is what really got me hooked on dinosaurs? Like, my big thing growing up was sharks and dinosaurs. If it wasn't like Star Wars or Ninja Turtles or something like that, like I love sharks and dinosaurs. And so I think I was kind of whatever, like the National Geographic Channel or Discovery or whatever it was whenever we were little, but they had these dinosaur programs that were kind of like claymation, that were like very reddish. I just remember it always being like this reddish, like hued uh TV program where like it was like kind of stop motion, and I think they were trying to be educational about it, but it was more just like interactions between like meat eaters and plant eaters. And I don't, do you remember that at all? That got me hooked.
No, like I think I've seen clips of it, but more as an adult. Like I don't think I've ever seen what you're talking about, like as a child, or even fully ever more than like a clip on the internet as something funny. No, I just thought they were cool. I like Land of the Lost, like for real, and just thinking like these dinosaurs are so huge. Like, what if they were real? Like, what if they were like with us, like at the same time walking around? Like, I just thought that was the most exciting thing that could happen. So we have to bring them back, clearly, until Jurassic Park came out. And then so again from there, just like, oh, maybe we shouldn't. But I just thought it was the whole idea of them being around, like I go to the zoos and I love the zoos, but what if we could go to the zoos and see, you know, dinosaurs like alive? That would be amazing.
So you have this book and you've gotten it out there already. It's for people, they're already able to grab it. I think the interesting thing about kids book is that you get two perspectives, right? Like typically a book is just like from the person reading its perspective, but it's also from like a parent and then from the kid, right? So
Yeah.
what's the feedback been like so far?
Well, I did this, you know, selfishly to do it for myself. Like I don't want to say I didn't care if kids liked it, because like I liked it. I thought I would have liked it if I was a child. That's what mattered. So getting the feedback from both parents. So it's been about like 50% of my coworkers have actually purchased copies, and like 50% have been my friends or people that know me. And a lot of them have purchased it because, you know, they have children or nieces and nephews. And so they're giving me feedback. You know, my friend said yesterday, he's a coworker in Delaware, and he said, you know, his boyfriend's niece or nephew, I think it was his nephew, was carrying it around for like an hour and a half, just like carrying this book around because he liked it so much. And my friend Tish's daughter, she's 4, and she like can recognize the words. Like her mom told me she can actually recognize like, oh, that's like a cat. It's the word cat because there's cat ears on this dinosaur. And it's, I don't want to overstep, but it's sort of, helping her recognize words to learn to read, which is greater than I could have ever have hoped this like silly book would have an impact. Because I mean, that's super important to me, education and reading, and you want children to want to read and read this book and then want to pick up another book, not to read, like look at this book and hate reading and never want to pick up another book. So, so far so good. I mean, I think the only improvement I would have made if I wasn't on such a budget would have been to do a hardback book, just to be more durable. My biggest fear was it getting like ripped or messed up or something, being a paperback. But so far so good with feedback on, the appealingness of the colors and the pictures, and also the readability, and whether or not a kid is just ignoring it or excited to receive it.
Yeah. So I was telling you before we started that, I gifted it to my best friend and his wife and their kid. And he just turned 2. So it's not like there's a whole lot going on as far as like speech and stuff like that, but he's getting there, he's babbling a lot, and then you can hear some words in between. But the words that he does know, like the verbiage that you have in your book is like so short and to the point that Kate, Matt's wife, was like, he is going to be able to like memorize this book. He's done this with other books because they'll see the pictures, you say the words, he'll just apply that, and then eventually he'll hold it and tell you the book, even though he can't totally read, but it's short and memorable, and like the, I guess there's this like application that you get from like seeing a picture and hearing those sounds, and he'll just repeat the sounds that are going to that are supposed to be applied to that page. And I thought that was super, super cute. But yeah, he was really into it. As soon as I gave it to him, I gave it to him with a stack of Star Wars books, like I told you, and those golden books, and he went straight to your book. So yeah, I've seen it in action, I guess. So I can say that it's definitely a good gift for. I mean, honestly, I don't really know where to cap this off age-wise. Like, I don't know, maybe like a 6-year-old would blast through it pretty quickly, but they'd probably still enjoy it.
Yeah, people kept asking me age ranges, and I was like, oh, like, early readers. So like maybe 3 to 5, like just when you're recognizing stuff, like you said. I mean, 2 is younger than I would have anticipated, but again, you're recognizing words like someone's pointing to a cat and saying cat. It's the same as pointing to a picture or the word cat and saying cat to create those like, little memory snippets. But yeah, anywhere around, kindergarten, first grade, I think when you're learning all your letters and reading just short sentences. And I definitely would research more of like what types of words and sentences, and there's so much more you can do to improve if I would make, a second book or something like that. So for the lack of research into making sure it was a certain reading level, really happy with the results, and really happy to hear that your friend's kid like actually likes it and might learn from it. It's just super exciting to hear feedback like that.
Yeah, it's funny because like you were like, oh, I do more research into whatever. And like sometimes I wonder if you do that, if you end up overthinking like your tactic on like what you're trying to get accomplished, and maybe then all of a sudden it kind of takes out a little bit of the creative spark. Like this apparently was just, pure creativity, right? This is just you driving forward with like this funny thought that you had, and then you just thought that it would translate really well to a kid's book. And I just feel like not that research is bad or anything like that, but there's something to be said for like that idea that's so good that you just don't mess with it.
Yeah. I mean, I had to do like, so I wanted my book to rhyme, and it was so important to me that it rhymed that I had to, like, I wanted all these pictures of different ears that I had wrote out, but they don't all rhyme. So like I had to use the word small ears, I think, instead of mouse ears. I think that's what we did. And things like that. Just so it kind of took away a little bit of just drawing all these fantastical images. But that kind of keeps you more on a path than like, okay, this sentence can only be 4 words maximum, or I can't say it's for this age range. And then just, I would, if I would have done that, I know I would have been like, yeah, I'm not doing this. I wouldn't have finished the project. That's how that would have turned out. So I think you're right with that.
Well, good stuff. So you obviously, went the whole 9 yards, made your book a physical reality. Do you have any advice for people interested in creating a children's book?
Have really awesome friends first and foremost. No, but really, I told everyone to use their networks. I've known my friend forever. Chances are you know someone that does some kind of drawings or graphic design. I luckily knew that person who had also Ray, who worked, at a printing company. So he knew sizes and specs and paperweights and things. But outside of him, I knew you guys, and between like graphic design and printing with, Chris, just anything I needed, I could find someone in my social networks that had advice or could help me with it, or I could hire for those types of things. So just using your networks, and I stuck to a budget to make sure I just got the minimum I needed. And then the information you need is online and it's free. I mean, Reedsy, like Reedsy, the Reedsy website, tons and tons of free self-publishing, publishing information, and just spend the time, if you don't know something, just, Google it, look into it. It's pretty much how I got it done. And that's my advice for everyone.
I mean, I love that, because there's so much stuff that people ask me, and as much as I want to be like, just Google it, because that's how I originally learned it. Of course I end up telling them, how to do it or whatever, but that is really good advice. And like, I think people's instinct is always go find somebody that did it beforehand. Like, is there somebody that they know that has done this that's close to them, or like is in somewhat like, some 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon from them. And like I was actually curious if like anybody tried, if you looked for like a mentor or something like that, or if you kind of just did it on your own.
I did ask, so with my company, because I work for the Boston Beer Company, the creator of Sam Adams Beer, the creator of Dogfish Head Beer, Jim and Sam have both written books. And so with our company, I had reached out to one of our PR people, one of the like founding members of the whole company with Sam Adams, Sally Jackson. And while she wasn't specifically in publishing, she did help Jim a lot with his first book. So she did give me some advice, as much as she could, even though it's a children's book versus, like an adult biography kind of a thing. And I definitely would use her more as a resource for making, if I would write, an actual like adult book with chapters and things. But yeah, definitely having, again, that network of reaching out to someone who has maybe done this before was definitely helpful for me to complete, the full project of writing this book.
Nice. Well, and obviously like a book and digital are so different, but just, I mean, writing is writing. Did you have any like, what past experience did you have with creative writing before diving into Dinosaur Ears?
I would say, just as far as writing, I used to write blog posts for the companies we were all involved with back in the Faded Industry days. And Pat would always, be my editor and help me with WordPress and writing. And that was the sort of creative practice that I had. But mostly I'm a reader, like I read things. And I would like to write more for sure. But before that, it was really just, I've studied language. My degree is in linguistics. I'm sure it helped me with this, even though I don't, see how it did. I mean, I feel like I wrote 10 sentences that rhymed, and I feel like my, English classes in middle school probably helped me the most with that. But, just literally English classes and schooling, and then, just reading. I've read a zillion children's books over my time period on Earth, and adult books as well.
Well, so that was actually was going to ask you that, like, were you a big reader? Did you spend a lot of time in libraries? Like, well, what's your relationship with reading? Mine's, I'm so much better at audio. Like, I always have been. And whenever I like the fact that my mom didn't present me with books on tape like earlier made me really mad, because like it really saved a lot of time for me.
Those exist. I'm completely the opposite. So like I refuse to do books on tape. I don't think I've ever, no, I listened to one podcast ever, like a full podcast, like series podcast, in my friend's car when we were on a trip to Williamsport. I'm not that way. Like I need a tangible book. So I did find out how to do like, an ebook version of this. And those are so popular. I really recommend, if people are writing a book, to make sure that yours is able to be an ebook as well, because they're so popular and that's what people like these days. But I'm just so old school with need to be inside of the library holding a book in my hand. But paperbacks over hardbacks if I had to choose. But really just being around books, reading books, really prefer that to writing or really anything audio by itself.
Man, that's so interesting to me, because like, like people always say like try to put yourself in other people's shoes. And for me, like learning was absorbing and or writing it down, but having it or audio, like audibly absorbing it and writing it down. But the concept of me reading it was always an obstacle. And I like, it's so funny that like you're like, I'm totally the opposite. And I like wonder what that is. I'm sure that somebody out there has an explanation for me. I could probably just
like?
Google that.
No, I have to call you out on that real quick, because that is literally why people ask you instead of Googling it, because they can't, like, Googling it and reading it, you don't learn that way for some people. Like you have to be shown or taught. Like everyone learns differently, like their best way of learning something. So
well, funny you say that, because I say that I Google it, but I truly do YouTube it. Like
watch the
that's,
videos.
yeah, well, and
Yeah.
has somebody give me the audio and all of it, that whole thing, the visual, the audio. That's so funny that you just said that. Because honestly, I'm just saying it like slightly disingenuously. I don't Google it, I YouTube it.
Which is, it's completely different. Like a bad habit I have, I don't know if it's a bad habit, but when I'm watching videos on my phone, like anything suggested, anything that's a video, I never put the audio on. I just read the subtitles and watch it. I just don't want to listen to it. I like to read it while it's going on, like a crazy person. I don't know that other people do that, but that's what I do.
Yeah, I'm slightly taken aback right now. That like, not that it horrifies me, but I do. There's actually a part of me that like obviously some movies you need to have subtitles because you don't understand the languages that they're saying, but sometimes they have subtitles just to kind of have them. And I see that and I'm like, it's like kind of a distraction for me, so
Yeah.
to only have the subtitles. Oh, man, that's so interesting. I did not expect to like dive into something I would learn about myself in this very moment, but like I'm now very intrigued about like the many ways people absorb information.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
So
so,
weird ways.
yeah. And like, so I would always, I would say, just like as an instinctual way to like tell people how to learn is to like do it the way that you learn best. And obviously that wasn't really an option for me whenever I was younger. Like always having an audio option or a video option was not either not readily available or just wasn't available at the time. So man, like the I wonder how many people were like really smart back in the day, but like just operated more like I was, but they didn't have an internet.
Yeah.
You know,
They
so
just
then they were
didn't.
like, well, I guess I'm a ditch digger now.
Well, that's why it's so important. Like, I just think like I'm big, like reading is so important, but when I say that, I should always say out loud to include like, even if you're listening to those written words, it's just really, really important um, to learn things and new things and get smarter and broaden your horizons and things like that. But no, that I think that's definitely the case with my friend's son. He's in 6th grade now, but he has a very hard time reading and then comprehending it. So he has to learn things. I think they have a method that's like, you see it and then you do like a physical, like you have to touch it. And then like you have to learn it through your senses, like each
Right.
sense to help with the comprehension. So,
It creates like a full context around everything.
yeah, because just like seeing the words doesn't make it work, or just hearing them doesn't, stick either. So, but having a school that pays attention to that and finds the right way to teach your kid, that they will, comprehend and be, a successful grown person is really, really, really important because it can hold you back in life. So, yeah, and it's never over. Everyone can keep learning.
Oh, I mean, I think if you just stop or you find yourself satisfied with the whatever you've just just became willingly obsolete. Like as time goes on, if you're not curious and you're not going to keep learning, I'm not sure what you're still doing. Man, we're getting so far away from the book, but it was kind of an awesome little rabbit hole we went down. But I kind of want to like get back to the book. um so from concept to completion, how long did the whole process take you?
I hate including like from when I first had the idea because I did nothing with it, for like those 15 years basically. Because I think I was like, no, I'm not even going to say it. It's like early 20s. When I had the idea, I was in my 20s. And then, but from this summer, it was like June to Halloween. So, me learning, and a lot of that was waiting. You don't rush your artists. Like, don't rush your artist. He took, maybe July, August to work around his own personal schedule. Again, I didn't pay him top dollar to say, I want this done in 1 week. Because he's a caricature artist. He's fast, he's quick. But doing the coloring and doing it digitally took a while. So, and again, like I said, in his spare time. So, 4 months total this year to have the artist complete everything, get the quotes. We would meet a few times. We probably met 3 times to look at the drafts. He would print out drafts for me from like Office Max in Greensburg. And we would meet and we would look at them and I would write any like changes I wanted. So we ended up deleting a page just to fit the standard page size and whatever and all that. So, and then the last literal like 14 days, we're just waiting for the books to arrive. So under 4 months for sure. And could be much shorter. Again, if someone kind of followed what I did, paid an artist a ton of money, did some expedited shipping. I don't know. But I was very happy with the completion time for what it was worth for this year. But again, the idea was, from the early 2000s, basically.
Were there any parts of the whole process that you didn't expect to be so tedious or difficult and turned out to be?
I just didn't have a knowledge of a lot of the printing basics. A book is like 4 sheets of paper. Like it's 4 pages. One piece, I should say, one piece of paper folded in half is like 4 frames. So when you're writing a book and you're like, well, I want to have this many pages. I'm creative. I'm going to make as many pages as I want. Well, those really shouldn't be, odd numbers. Do 12 instead of 13 pages. But there were ways to adjust that. We put in a title page. I condensed 2 pages together, but again, that's all doing standard sizes to cut costs and things. You can probably make a book any number of pages you want. You could probably do a half hardback, half soft cover if you want to spend the money on it. But just realizing the physical printing aspects of a book were definitely something I had to realize and work around the most.
Yeah, well, I mean, I've talked about this a number of times now, between, you know, the old interviews that we were doing and even, you know, the new official podcast episodes. But like, it's funny how like the printing world kind of has its own language, and
Yeah.
and it seems like printers don't really have a lot of patience to explain themselves to like the general public or even to like businesses or whatever.
Or like your
That's
coworkers, your
right.
friends.
Well, so that's no, like that's where like we came in. We decided to step in and take that niche, that like that middleman role that we decided as designers, you know, people that we would have to communicate to, you know, printers anyways. Let's just learn the lingo. Let's learn everything about it, and let's just create what we now call some good print. But yeah, so it's kind of funny that you bring that up. Like, yeah, you kind of have to learn like these are the standards of printing. Like these one page is 4 pages actually. You know, folded in half, front back. Yeah, so that I find that funny, but I find it extremely useful because it's why we are what we are.
I mean, without Ray's knowledge of printing and then Pat's and the two of them talking to each other, it would have been a complete nightmare for me, or just a general person, to be like, here's my book, I have the images, and try to give it to a printing company and have it be a mess because this was full bleed and this was partial bleed and they don't know what those terms are, and you know, your image got cut off and your cover was misaligned from the front to the back if you would flatten it out, and just things like that would have been so upsetting. And you know, it affects your artwork, for example. So it would have been a huge nightmare without, you know, you guys and Pat specifically being able to speak the language I needed to get him the files and the formats and things that you needed, and that you helped him with, and things like that. Huge benefit to just working with you guys, instead of, say, for example, going to Office Max and being like, here's my file, print this on cardstock, you know, and just not having an end result be something you're proud of, or you're not proud of if you did it that way.
Well, so besides printing being the absolute worst, in that same vein, was there anything you really ended up enjoying that you didn't expect to?
I haven't thought of anything like that. I'm trying to think. The only other, like, I don't want to say it's exciting. I'm trying to think of the right word, because I'm an author. I should use the right words all the time. A thing I found out when I was like, how much should I pay my illustrator? And looking into that, I really found out that your illustrators typically get paid a flat amount of money, which is, it's a large lump sum. And then they never have rights to their images ever again. So, and I don't want to say Dr. Seuss did this, but as an example, all of the books I remember from my childhood, like Dr. Seuss books, I remember all of the pictures, and I remember some of the words and that they rhyme, but I can always picture every illustration when I remember those words. And like, he didn't draw them. And the illustrator and maybe he paid his guy a lot of money. But typically when you make a book, you're like, here's your money, give me my images. They're mine now, they're for my book. But for eternity, people are always going to associate those images with your book, and you could make, you know, millions, and that person made like a couple $1,000s. So I just found that really interesting and weird, and it's something that can be improved. Like, this is more, in my opinion, a collaboration effort. You know, Ray did these drawings, they're his. I wanted his name, you know, on the cover and big, and I wanted it to be known, like, you know, my friend Ray did this. And all illustrators might not want that, but to maybe set up pay structure differently for things like this in the future, to give them a share of the profits for a long time, is something an illustrator should maybe negotiate for, if it were me, in my opinion. And I just found that really enlightening, that kind of how the book industry has been operating, but it can be changed. So just thought that was kind of cool.
Right. Well, that's really interesting because, the music industry kind of operates kind of the same way between the artist and publishers, the artist and record companies. And I would imagine most creative has been kind of fleeced by history.
Yeah.
And I think that that's kind of getting turned on its head now that creatives have so much power with social media. They can go straight to the consumer with their talent instead of having to like go funnel themselves through an agency or through some sort of a label or whatever that would then give them the publicizing that they would need so that they could, have distribution, have an audience, have all that stuff. So that's really funny that you kind of bring that up. It's also interesting that you brought up that the images are the things that you remember, because I just watched a documentary literally last night about this dig in Egypt, like this excavation that they did in Egypt. And I can't remember exactly what the name of it was. It starts with like the area was, it started with an S, and they were digging up this this person that they were calling Wati. But the whole thing was, when you say that you remembered the images, like that seems to be the thing that translates through time, right? All the words and everything like that, everything that they had written on pages and whatnot, that had all disintegrated. They had to pull together everything that they found from this site based on like the images on the walls, the hieroglyphs, the actual sculptures, everything like that. So that's kind of funny that you worded it that way. It just made me think of that documentary and just knowing everything that we know from history with like just Egypt in general and the pharaohs and everything that's going on, what's inside the pyramids, blah blah blah. All we've had were these images, and they translate through time. And so that's really, really interesting to me that you phrased it that way.
Well, you may, not to get off topic, but one, was it Secrets of the Saqqara Tomb?
That one.
That one.
Because
I had to look on my phone because I sent that to my mom to watch. I was like, Mom, you have to watch this. I have not watched it yet.
It's very good. I like it. I like it a lot.
That makes me think of the people that carved those. Like, are they the writers or were they just illustrators? Like, were they both? And now we're all so separate because writing and illustration can be different talents and skills that not everyone has both of.
Well, the funny part is that you'll kind of get it. You'll kind of get an answer to what you're saying. And then you'll also get somewhat of a conclusion to all of that based on how it's being translated, because they're not 100% on everything, but they do make an interesting conclusion at the end that lets you know what these statues and hieroglyphs are in relation to reality. And it's a very, very interesting conclusion. So I also
on my watch list.
I just so, and I don't even watch a lot of documentaries, but I do love Egypt stuff. Like I do love, I like that type, that like slice of ancient history is very interesting to me. So that's why I ended up getting pulled into that.
I'll definitely watch it.
Yeah. Put it on. I'm glad you sent it to your mom. Definitely put it on the list. So, something like this either like scratches an itch or like unleashes a monster. So what's your reaction to now having done a book? You have a book now. What is it?
I felt like relieved, like checkbox, like done. I feel like if a huge publisher came to me and was like, we're going to sign you, we're going to give you all this money, can you write more children's books? I would be like, hell yeah. Like, just, I'll make things rhyme. I'll make it work. It's not my passion to do more children's books. Like, I do love writing. I would love to be an actual, like, adult author with a thick book, like paperback, Stephen King style. So, not sure my talents are there, but that's probably what I would work towards. And then when I did that, I can say, hey, I am already a published author. So it just gives me a little more cred about that. So I'm super, super excited to work towards that. But nothing definite, nothing, I'm kind of just, I got something done off my plate for so many years that I'm in the moment, not really planning anything as a follow-up right now.
Well, I guess that kind of eliminates my next question, which was saying that, like, obviously you're early on in, like, the book process. You just released this like weeks ago. So nothing, like, is there like literally anything buried back in the back of your mind where you're like, maybe there's something on the horizon once this kind of, once this like has taken, has done the ride that it's supposed to take for you?
I mean, I would probably say a book of short stories because I've never written, I don't like writing at length. And the short story art form I think it's growing in popularity. Just people don't have the patience. They don't want to read a novel. Like, short stories are where it's at. So that could coincide if I wanted to start typing things up, which I would do type, not write by hand. Like I think Stephen King still does sometimes. Now he's obviously my favorite author. Clearly, I keep mentioning him. But yeah, so I have not started anything, have a couple of ideas. I always keep like an idea book to just jot like things down because I will forget if I don't write down any cool, awesome ideas I have. But we'll see. It'll be probably a boring winter. I can probably find something fun to do.
Hey, gotta stay warm. I'm definitely lighting a fire tonight. So most importantly now, where can people pick up a copy of the book?
Oh, you think I would have memorized this? My book is only listed at your website for Some Good Print. I think they need the extension to find it because it's
all right.
just find Dinosaur Ears at Some Good Print.
I'll say it because I just happen to have it in front of me. It is www.somegoodprint.com/dinosaur-ears.
Just Google it.
Yeah, just Google it. But we'll also have it. I'll have it linked, in the bio of this whole thing. Like, we'll be, but also Google it because, it's good for you. Learn.
Yeah. You guys saved my life with the shop page there too, because trying to self-publish and sell your own book means you have to set up, sales tax and taxes and state things and business filings. And I'm not involved in trying to do all that. So appreciate all the Some Good Print help with the shop page. So that's really the only place you can buy it unless you break into my house, I guess. Because I have all the copies and I mail them out. So
please don't give out your address. So I've been hitting you with all the questions so far. I always let the guests flip the script at the end, and so I'll let you ask the audience anything you'd like to know from them. So what are you wondering about that you'd like to ask everybody tuning in?
I'm so unprepared for this question. I guess if anyone tuning in hates reading, I want to know why they hate reading. Huge thing that upsets me is when I tell someone, like, I read a book or I bought a book or something, and they're like, oh, I don't read. I hate reading. And it's one thing to prefer a podcast or to prefer audio, but when someone is just so like averse to reading, I want to know what it did. Like, what book was it? Like, what assignment did your 6th grade teacher make you read that you were like, I'm never reading again? So yeah, just why people don't like reading, or what would make them want to read more, like actual books.
Interesting. I wonder if most of the answer is a lot of what we talked about, where people are actually kind of projecting the fact that reading is not something they're good at. They're projecting it in like hate towards reading, but really they like audiobooks, or they're really big on podcasts, or they're big movie people or whatever. I wonder if that's the answer, but that's a great question. So lastly, if people want to connect with you on the interwebs, where can they find you if you want them to?
Well, I'm pretty private on most things, but I'm pretty easy to find because of my name being so weird. I am at Danger Swan on Instagram. You can request me, but I recommend messaging me so that I know you're a real person. And I'm on the Facebook as well. Is just my name, which is on my book, so you can find me that way.
Right on. Well, the author is Damaris Shaw, and AKA D-Rex. The book is Dinosaur Ears. It's funny, it's adorable, and it's available at somegoodprint.com/dinosaur-ears, which we'll also have linked. It sounds way too long now that I'm like speaking it. And congratulations on the book. You really, truly did an amazing job. And thank you for letting me be the first stop on your book promotion tour.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited. My first podcast ever.
There you go. Well, it is my pleasure for sure. So everybody pick up the book, and there's plenty of time to make people very happy before Christmas. All right. Thanks.
Thank you.